Hello and welcome back to the Sports Brief Podcast. This is Colton Hall, your host, graciously. Then we've got our trusty co-host and Tristin Rancour, sitting right to my left. But then we've got another little treat for you as well, a guy by the name of Stone Cleere. Thank you.
Howdy.
Good to have you on, big guy.
Happy to be here.
We obviously brought you on because you're a gigantic Seahawks fan, and there's a lot of things that are going on. Before we get started with this, did you think that Russell Wilson was worth all that money? Because I did. I love Russell Wilson. I really do.
Personally, I feel like a lot of people thought it was way too much to pay that man, but when you look at the facts and the statistics, I haven't seen one player besides, I know you as a Vikings fan might not agree too much with this, but Aaron Rodgers really be the center or the epicenter of their team. And when Russell Wilson came and showed what he had on the offense, when he had the worst offensive line, I think, in NFL history, he had the most sacks ever by, I think, 15 more than whoever held it before. He studded out still, didn't get hurt. He was able to get out. He was able to do what he had to do just to make sure that we could go on to be 9-7, for instance. And it definitely seemed like if any player deserved that amount of money, I couldn't think of a better person to earn it. And I definitely thought he was worth every penny. If we would have lost him, it would have been a total soul crusher of us, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
I agree a lot with him. In a way, he's very comparable to Russell Wilson to the Seahawks is almost exactly how Aaron Rodgers is to the Packers. We've seen the Packers without Aaron Rodgers. They looked like the 0-16 Cleveland Browns. They were absolute trash, and I wouldn't doubt the Seahawks would be the same without Russell Wilson. Mm-hmm. So as soon as Rodgers got his big contract, and I saw the rumors about Russell Wilson getting his big contract, I'm like, hey, I'm not going to be mad if he gets paid more than Rodgers because he keeps his team afloat.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, I agree with that. It was really impressive to me how Mr. Wilson handled himself. He was a guy that I think after the first or second, he had the Legion of Doom when he first got there, so it wasn't like he had nobody. He had a defense, so I think he won the Super Bowl in his second year, off the top of my head.
It was his sophomore year, and he went when the Legion of Doom, I'd say, was at its peak. They were absolutely unbelievable. We didn't have Brandon Browner at the time, but he was probably the weakest link out of all four of them that I'd say was considered just the secondary Legion of Doom or Legion of Boom. And then as we continued on the second year, we started seeing more people like Bobby Wagner come out, and then it totally flourished. And I think that was their year that they were the best overall.
Totally embarrassed the Broncos, by the way. One of the most glorious things I've ever seen.
Oh, yeah.
I think it was, who was it? No, it was actually, that was a different Super Bowl. It was against the Broncos and the Panthers. I saw Von Miller absolutely destroy Mike Remmers, the starting right tackle for the Vikings at a time. I don't know why they paid him $50 million. Anywho, let's kind of get on to the rest of this show. We've got a lot to cover tonight, and it's actually going to start with some of the biggest surprises from week one. I actually want to hand it off to our special guest here, Mr. Cleere. We'll go on. By the way, that's French, so all these ladies out there, keep your hands off. You guys got to know the biggest surprises. We're just gonna hand it off to you, Stone. What was your biggest surprise from week one?
Well, again, I'd say probably overall. There were a couple of them, but the one that stood out the most to me, Andy Dalton and the Bengals, when they came into Seattle, I was watching that entire game, and I did not think he did the numbers that he put up statistically. When you look at it now, 418 yards, a few touchdowns, it's beautiful. A couple touchdowns. It's just unbelievable that he came into our stadium when I thought the Hawks were doing very well. I thought we were slowly getting the connect on offense, but our defense was studding out as much as they could. They were out there for so long. But the Bengals, I think, are going to be a real big surprise this season. I think that a lot of people should keep them on their radar because Andy Dalton showed just what he can produce when he's under that pressure. And the only other thing I could think of why that happens, Seahawks, when they play the Bengals usually win, and they put up those stats sometimes, but this game, I don't know, he definitely studded out, and it definitely looked like he had what it takes to help lead his team and the entire team in general to continue on and possibly be some playoff contenders.
Yep. Andy Dalton was a guy, it's kind of funny. I don't think anybody really thought, I think they maybe thought he was going to have one more year in him, and then, because I think the Bengals wanted to find a more permanent answer at quarterback, but I was excited to see that, Andy Dalton, I think a lot of people hated on him because I just felt like, there was he had some help with Mike Zimmer and some of that defense, but that was a tough situation. My co-host Tristin, what about you was the biggest surprise from week one?
Yeah, I agree with him. First of all, if you look at the numbers, you take the score away, everybody would say, "Oh, Bengals probably won that game." So that was a pretty big surprise. I'm not sure what Wilson's stats were, but
yeah, his stats were so. But Andy Dalton's,
yeah.
Oof.
But two big things jumped out to me this week. I think first of all was the Titans-Browns game. I wasn't too surprised that the Browns didn't do as well as they've been hyped up to be. But I was very surprised at how well the Titans played.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think anybody saw that coming. Nobody's been talking about the Titans. Marcus Mariota played a great game. Cameron Wake on the defense, great addition. Dude's 37 years old, and he looks like DK Metcalf playing defensive end. But, yeah, that was one of my biggest surprises. I think the Titans are going to be pretty dangerous this year. And then the other one, another AFC team, the Baltimore Ravens. Lamar Jackson definitely shut a lot of people up this week. That all the talk about him not being able to throw. I do understand it's 1 week, and I do know you're going to say it was the Dolphins' defense, but you have to look at the throws. They're all pro safeties. They're pro corners. And most of the throws he made were absolute dimes. I don't think any defense would have been able to defend some of the throws he made. But, it's 1 week. Anything can happen the rest of the season. But I do think Lamar Jackson and the Ravens were probably in for a pretty surprisingly good year.
Mm-hmm. First of all, I want to before we kind of get into the whole thing, what happened there, I want to say, first of all, that I applauded Lamar Jackson's throwing ability when he was coming out of college. I thought he was a better thrower than Teddy Bridgewater, but I didn't know the man was this good. I immediately jumped the gun like everybody else did, including Stephen A. Smith. All those guys immediately said this guy can't throw the football. He's not bad for a running back. No kidding. But, I mean, literally, when I saw this man throw it, I watched all the highlights, and I'll give the man this. I would say all 5 of his touchdowns were dimes. Other than that, I would say the vast majority of his throws, though, if you look at it, there was quite a few of them where he had 2 to 3 yards to fit in a window. And no offense, but if you're a professional quarterback, you should be able to fit that in a window. But I will, for the time being, say I was wrong in saying that he can't throw the football. But again, I'm going to have to come back to the fact that you have to be able to do it for 16 games. And again, this Miami Dolphins team, and no offense, I know my good boy, Charlie Hildebrand is listening right now, who's actually a really big Dolphins fan. I'm sorry, big guy, but they're tanking for this year because I believe they want to get they want to get somebody else in there. They got to find a way. I don't think Fitzmagic is your answer. I think they got to find an answer there in Miami. So I would did you guys also hear that multiple of those top players asked their agents to be traded right after that? Yeah. So I was like, that just shows me right there. And plus, Vontae Davis last year also requested a trade, he retired at halftime because they were down by like 30. And to me, that shows being a former college football player. I know what it's like to not necessarily, not that now want to play for a coaching staff, but also just to know that go in there week 1, just get through it. And honestly, I felt like that's what the Dolphins were doing. They were just going out there. It was all show. Fitzmagic did make some good throws, but he also made some throws. Let's face it, he didn't outdo Lamar Jackson in any way. So I was wrong for 1 week. I'll give you that. 1 week. Let's see what he does the rest of the 15 games, though. I'm a Vikings fan. We got to take everything with a grain of salt, especially with the Vikings. So I'm a guy that knows you have to be able to just look at a full game season. If he does it for the entire year, Tristan, I texted you and told you this. I will take it back. I was wrong. I asked my girlfriend. I never am afraid to admit when I'm wrong because I believe that's how you grow as a person. But for now, I'm going to say it's a little early, but he did have a good game. I'll give him that. Biggest surprises for me week 1. This isn't just because I'm a Vikings fan, but that offensive line that I saw for the Minnesota Vikings, I was a guy, I'm too much of a fan in some cases because I'm always sitting up thinking, oh, man, I wonder how that left guard spot's going to look. I wonder if Pat Elflein can hold a block for 3 seconds. I'm wondering if that left tackle, Riley Reef, who, by the way, again, I played against his brother in high school. I'm really hoping that he can actually protect Kirk Cousins' blind side. So the entire time I'm sitting there, I realized the Vikings don't have to throw the football 30 times a game. They don't have to go in there and immediately just gunsling it around. If they have an offensive line, I will take Dalvin Cook running for 111 yards, especially because I had him on my fantasy team. Great find in, I believe, the 4th round. So, listen, the Vikings don't got to throw the ball 40 times a game. And I believe I said this to my dad after the game. I was like, if the Vikings throw the football exactly anywhere from, I'd say, 20 to 32 times a game, after 32, you're really pushing it because then you're really one-sided. Because let's be real, the Vikings defense, I don't remember what the Zach stat was, but when they don't give up over 21 points, they're like 44-4 or something. Like they're unbelievable. They're not going to allow 3 touchdowns in a game. They're one of the top, I would say, top 5 defenses in the NFL for the last 5 years or 4 or 5 years. So, no, I just think that was really excited to see that. Most surprising thing, because I didn't think that offensive line was going to be that good. I knew they were going to be improved because, let's face it, what they had last year didn't exactly, get them to the playoffs, okay? And it's nothing to write home about. So it was good to see that they, bounced back and were able to do something and improve off it. But again, I'm a Vikings fan, so I know that it probably won't last, and I'm really expecting to take an L against the Packers. And don't get too high on your horse there, Tristin. But as a Vikings fan, you got to know when you're beat, and I just don't know if the Vikings got an answer for that Packers defense. But I would say also, that the Browns game, I wasn't the only guy hyping these guys up. I was thinking, they got Kareem Hunt, who's going to be out 8 games. I know he's going to be out 8 games, but he's still a really good running back. Baker Mayfield showed me a lot last year. I honestly thought he was going to be the next Johnny Manziel. And Jarvis Landry, Odell Beckham Jr., David Njoku, who I have in my fantasy team, just stacked on the offensive side of the football. And then you look at their defense, who allowed you don't even know. You need to go into. You guys can just look at the final score. What was it, like 48-13 or something like that? I don't remember what the final was. But
48-17, maybe something along those lines. Yeah,
48 points is way too many points for an NFL defense to be allowing. Is the point? But you know what? That was really honest. I can do nothing but agree with you guys. What about the Patriots and Steelers game though? Was I the only guy that was sitting there looking at this like, okay, is Tom Brady actually this good, or is the Patriots, or excuse me, the Steelers defense just this awful? No offense. It was the fact that the Steelers defense was that awful. I think they left, Josh Gordon, who I should have drafted in my fantasy team. I don't know why I didn't. I had a shot at him and Julio Jones, and I took Julio. But Flash Gordon would have caught like a 17-yard touchdown pass. Didn't get touched until he got inside the 5-yard line. So I'm just like, I just realized that the Steelers need a lot of help. And I hope that this isn't it for them, because I love Juju Smith-Schuster. I'm a big fan of him. But I think there's a lot of things to come with him. And hopefully, he can go on and improve off that. But now, kind of going into that, is it officially panic time for the Steelers? Because, again, allowing 33 points to Tom Brady isn't exactly, unheard of, because it's Tom Brady, arguably the greatest quarterback to ever play. I know Tristin said he's not that fun to watch, but the GOAT discussion, again, we'll have that another time. I don't know. We'll just schedule it. But here's the thing. Tom Brady is a good NFL quarterback. I don't know that he's the greatest, but he is a good NFL quarterback. We can't deny it. He's got 6 of those blings on his fingers, okay? So you can't really say anything about the dude. But to only score 3 points, listen, I know that the Patriots defense is respectable. It's a good defense. I'd say it's a top 10 defense. But Big Ben, if you're going to be in the Hall of Fame and you only put up 3 points against the Patriots defense, you got to find a way. But what do you guys think? I think it's a little bit of panic time for the Steelers, because don't get me wrong, Connor, I'm a big fan of Connor. I think he came out of Penn State too, so I was a big fan of Connor. And I think Juju Smith-Schuster is obviously a really respectable wide receiver. Their offensive line is arguably the best in football. I think it's panic time for the Steelers, because who do they got other than Juju and James Conner? Like, it's obviously Ben Roethlisberger, but that doesn't. So I apologize. Other than that, you guys talk. I need to grab my pizza. I apologize.
It's okay.
Yeah, you go right ahead and start. I pretty much a set mind on it.
Yeah, I don't think it's necessarily panic time. I would be pretty concerned, though, if I was the Steelers or any of the Steelers fans. If you see this for another maybe 2 weeks, or if you see the same performance for another week, then I think it's panic time. Mm-hmm. It's the first game of the season. All these starters probably didn't play a whole lot in the preseason. So it's not unheard of to start this slow. But if they play this bad for another game or two, then I think they're in pretty big trouble. Everybody was saying the whole offseason, they don't need AB. They don't need Le'Veon Bell. But the way the other night looked, I think about everything.
Yeah, I'd say overall you nailed it on the head. I'd say probably one more week. If next game we're seeing the same exact stats, then it's panic time. Maybe I'd even consider bench Roethlisberger at that point, because over the past few seasons, I mean, he's definitely put up some numbers that aren't anything to, overlook per se. Like, they're pretty decent usually. However, it just seems like he doesn't have that kind of zing he used to have when they played the Seahawks in the Super Bowl way back then. He used to be a different man. He was Big Ben. That's what everyone knew him as. Now it's just kind of almost like his prime's gone. We kind of all understand that it's gone, and he's just, he's still experienced. He's got what it takes, but I think the Antonio Brown and the Le'Veon Bell thing are two great points to make. Those two were so detrimental to the Steelers and no one realized it. But also with this game, it could have been an off game since we did see Antonio Brown go to the Patriots. So they might have been flipping out over that and thinking, wow, we just totally shot ourselves in the foot and didn't just send it to the Pats and figure it out because he went there anyways. So I think after next week, we consider panicking and maybe time to, change the schemes, change up who's starting, who's not, and, go from there. But yeah, like you said, their offensive line is solid. So they don't really have an excuse for a quarterback not throwing at least one touchdown.
Mm-hmm, absolutely. Tristin, I mean, did you have anything else to add on that big guy?
No. I watched the whole game, most of it at least, and the offense just couldn't find a rhythm.
Yeah,
they'd have a big play here and there every other couple drives, but they couldn't seem to get anything going. They didn't look like they were communicating very well. Ben wasn't on the same page with any of the receivers. So if it continues, it's definitely panic time, but that's about all I got on that.
Yeah, I agree. Here's the thing, though. If you're I need to calm down. If you are a Hall of Fame quarterback like Ben Roethlisberger, no matter what, you still have to find a way to drive your team down. I think this is kind of the beginning of the end for Ben Roethlisberger. No offense to him. I've never been a huge Steelers guy, but I mean, you always have to respect Ben Roethlisberger. He's Big Ben, like you said. So you've always got to have an immense amount of respect for that man. So I think it's going to come down to what he can. It's honestly what him and Juju can do at this point. James Conner is going to come in and do his thing too. But this is going to be one of those times. It could be a troubling time to be a Steelers fan. I don't think I never thought I'd say that. Let's kind of go into this next thing. And since we're on the Steelers, and you guys kind of talked about Brown already, let's talk about Brown now. Can we just kind of stop for a second and realize how much this dude's name has been in the papers, in articles, in everything? Everybody's telling me that Antonio Brown planned this whole thing. Personally, I don't know how to take it because I feel like if he had planned the whole thing, I think that it would have been probably a little bit more put together, a little stronger, because it looked like though he was content with playing for the Raiders. He looked like he actually wanted to do it. But then this whole thing, and maybe he did plan, I don't know. But the point is, my mind is boggled. I think everybody else is kind of not expecting. And now the sexual assault case. Mm-hmm. Could we talk about a cherry on top? This is unbelievable. This guy, does he want to be this famous, or is it just something that just a stroke of bad luck at the end there?
Yeah, I don't know. I kind of want to make a calendar. I want to make an Antonio Brown calendar. Each month of the year is going to be a different issue of his over the last couple months. But everybody, he's probably most likely going to get put on the commissioner's exempt list, I think, here this week, probably. Yep. And I think the Patriots will probably end up suspending him until all their investigations come to an end. So similar to what they did to Tyreek Hill. It's just ridiculous. I don't know. And a lot of people think that Antonio Brown won't work well with Tom Brady, just the personality. But I had a friend who made a joke about it. He said, hey, if the Patriots can have Aaron Hernandez, who's out murdering guys in the bye week, then I think they can put up with Antonio Brown.
I agree. Yeah. I think, too, Antonio Brown, personally, I'm a conspiracy guy, so I deeply believe there's some Bill Belichick tapped in at the right time or just dropped a comment in his DM, just something to sprinkle a little bit of edge on him. And if not, it was planned well before. I think because the Steelers originally wanted him to be traded not to the Patriots. The Patriots wanted him bad. Belichick was willing to trade with them. He wanted something for Antonio Brown to give away. And then they said no to him. So I think from the beginning he talked with Belichick. Belichick's like, come here, we're going to get you a Super Bowl. We got a stacked team. Tom's ready to throw some touchdowns to you. So he said, I'm going to act at first, I'm happy to sign all my paperwork in Oakland. And then I'm just going to throw a tantrum and go out. Because then the next day after all the real big stuff happened, he did apologize and said, hey, I'm going to try my best and all that. And then they cut him, and not within, 8 hours, he was a Patriot to be. And I could not even fathom it. My phone popped up with that, and I thought it was a joke. I'd seen memes all week about it,
yep.
But Belichick, he
did
the very
first dude to send that to me. I was like, Tristin can't be right about this. Please, he can't be right about this. And sure enough, I saw it on ESPN. I'm like, you got to be kidding me.
Yep.
Just unfair at this point how stacked the Patriots are.
It's so unfair. I mean, name another AFC team. The Chiefs are going to do very well. Mahomes is definitely here. He knows what's up, and I'm a big Mahomes believer now. But you cannot compete with Belichick and Brady's dynasty. They're the Kings until Brady retires or Belichick retires. After that, it's probably Brady when he retires. It's just 20 years in the season of this chemistry, or 20 seasons in a row for Tom Brady. This chemistry is just unbeatable. And, I mean, no matter what, there's all allegations and all that stuff about the Patriots for X, Y, and Z. In the end, you just got to give, like you said, respect where it's due. And, I mean, Tom Brady, I used to not like him, and now I can't respect him enough for how insane it is to play 20 seasons back-to-back. And realistically, not have any injuries too bad at all. I don't think he's really had any major injuries that have.
I think there was one season where he broke his leg, but I think that was the only season.
Yeah,
and they went 11-5 without.
Yeah, I know, with Matt Castle, and I'm like, no offense, but then Matt Castle did absolutely nothing in the NFL from that point on. Like, he was just a career backup, so I was kind of like, wow. Like, but I mean, that kind of just, to me, that showed how great of a coach Belichick is, because literally, you took a guy that is probably a career backup, or maybe a little bit better than a career backup, and you went 11-5 with him and still went to the playoffs. So it's just like, that just spoke to me how good Belichick is really of a coach. So, yeah, that was really impressive. Man, I can't believe this. Like, it's honestly a nightmare come true. And I mean, I'm a Vikings fan, so I've had every other nightmare in the book. Wide left against your team, Stone, a couple years ago.
And then we signed him the following season. So
yeah,
no worries, you missed plenty for us.
Yeah, I just I got to quit talking about it because I'll cry again, and we don't want to get that on air. But but now let's kind of swing into the Browns here, and that being the Cleveland Browns. Again, I was somebody that was looking at their team and thinking, okay, this team is definitely very stacked. But I think, honestly, I feel like everybody was just so tired of them sucking for so long. Like, they just really wanted to see the Browns do something. And I mean, last year they were very respectable. What were they? They weren't quite 7-9. I think it was
8-8. I think actually wasn't. It was. Yeah, that's when the Browns hype train really started after that season. Yeah.
Yeah, I just
they got Odell.
I just think that with everything that went down. Everything that went down with them, I think everybody wanted to see something that was going to be fun to watch, and everybody that was watching was hoping. And when they got, I think I was talking to Rob Garofalo, who's actually a sports writer at the Aberdeen American News that I was working with, and I said, "Oh man, they just got Odell. Like, this is huge." Like, and he's like, "Oh, okay." Like, he kind of just brushed it off, like, "Yeah, it's not that big of a deal." What, are you kidding me? Like, probably in consideration of one of the most polarizing players that's coming into the NFL. I mean, I was absolutely flabbergasted, to use one of my favorite words of all time. But I mean, just kind of going into it, I didn't think that there was a way that, just looking at it, I couldn't believe it. Do you think that with everything that the Browns did this season, are they still overhyped? Even though a week one loss, I think a lot of people are counting up. I mean, what do you guys think?
I don't think they were overhyped. Maybe a little bit, but. You know what I said about the Steelers, too. None of these guys played a whole lot in the preseason. It's week one. There's going to be a little rust to brush off. But, you know, if this happens again the next couple weeks, then I think if they can't make anything happen with what they have, I think they're kind of screwed. And I don't think Freddie Kitchens was the right hire for a head coach. I'm not sure who their head coach was the second half of last year after they fired Hugh Jackson. But they did really good under him. I fully expected them to hire him as the head coach and not Freddie Kitchens. So that surprised me a lot. We've never seen him play with Freddie Kitchens as the head coach before and the play caller. So I don't know. I'd give it, just like the Steelers, give it another week or so. If they don't start clicking, putting up 20 or more points a game, then they're probably in pretty big trouble.
Mm-hmm. Stone, what do you think?
Yeah, I'd say probably another week as well. But personally, when I look at it from my perspective, you have so many big personalities on the Browns. So I just imagine at practice, Baker and Odell probably aren't always on the same page, where Baker's like, "Oh, that was a perfect throw," and Odell's like, "It was horrible." You know, I feel like there's a lot of that does go on with the Browns, because that's just, they were hyped. Everyone was thinking, oh, they got a great Super Bowl chance and Baker Mayfield's here to stay and all that. And I think on the field, all those big personalities, they really don't blend when you have those types of teams. I mean, when the Seahawks had the Legion of Boom, it was Richard Sherman was our big personality. We had one. There was a few other guys. Russell Wilson kind of came in, but it's a different personality. But like an Odell Beckham, Baker Mayfield, Jarvis Landry type personality, it's just so difficult. And then you just see it always fall out. I mean, you saw it with Le'Veon Bell and Antonio Brown. Who knows if the reason they both left is because they got into it together with Ben or something. So it's difficult. I think behind closed doors, the Browns might be something different than they're trying to portray. They're kind of showing that, oh, we're great brothers and we're here. But I think there's possibly more than meets the eye. And there's a lot going on in the back room that we really just don't see for the Browns.
Mm-hmm. You know, and I don't want to count them out. By the way, I looked it up. They were 7-8-1. That's close enough to 8. They tied with the Steelers in week 1, which was, I didn't expect that. But you know, I think it's just going to be really something to watch this year. I want them to make the playoffs because I'm a guy that I like to see, you know, one of those teams, especially the Browns, who but in a long time haven't really been that relevant just because it's the Browns. Probably, I don't want to say since the Jim Brown days, but that's probably just about as, you know, as when they were last relevant. Maybe I'm missing some. I'm not a big Browns fan, so I'm not exactly sure when they were relevant, but Jim Brown was, I think, their last call to start him in like the 27 or 28 quarterback careers that they ruined. Like I just don't know when the Browns are going to be relevant again. But, you know, obviously I wish Baker Mayfield nothing but the best. I was wrong about Baker Mayfield, and I've openly said that on the podcast a couple of times. You know, I actually work with a girl, her name's Laura, and she openly stated that she doesn't like all of his antics. But as a fan, in some cases, I kind of appreciate him. And I know that probably can get misconstrued, but I appreciate not what he does. Let me explain on that. Let me expand on that point and kind of just let you know what I mean. What I mean is, if I'm a GM, if I'm looking for a quarterback, if I'm looking for someone to lead my franchise for the next 10, 15, maybe even 20 years, if you're lucky to get a Tom Brady guy like that, if I'm looking for a franchise quarterback, I'm not looking for a guy that's all quiet, you know, and everything and kind of just off to the side. Let's look at guys that are fiery. I'll throw one right there. Brett Favre. Tristin, I know you're going to nod your head because you were a Packers fan. Obviously, you want a guy with fire that's going to go in there and hold everybody accountable, hold himself to an even higher standard, just because that's who he is. There's a lot of guys you could go along this list. But at the end of the day, I still think that if you're drafting a quarterback, if you truly want someone to come in and be able to lead your franchise, you have to draft somebody that's passionate about what they do. And let's face it, Baker Mayfield might be one of the most passionate guys in football. Especially, you look at, I think, what did he do? I think he put the Oklahoma flag in front of the Ohio State field, or like in the middle of it. Like, maybe a little unnecessary. Maybe that was a little bit of trash talking. But at the same time, was I the only one that was like, yeah? Like I was like, and there's nothing that Ohio State could do about it because he just went onto your field. He just went into your place and he did it. Like he didn't care about the consequences. He didn't care about getting fined, whatever it was. That takes a dude to do that. And not only that, but to back it up with his play. I got a lot of respect for this guy. I think he's going to be able to do something really good in the NFL. Maybe it's with his current team. I don't know, but just from what I saw, from how he bounces back and how he handles himself, just from a passion standpoint, because if you don't do anything in this life with passion, you're not going anywhere. So the fact that he can do what he does and do it with passion, I think that's just going to make him that much more of a greater quarterback. I mean, what do you guys agree with that you have to have some type of research? You have to be able to get up every day and want to do what you do every day?
Yeah,
yeah,
sure,
absolutely.
Yeah. If I'm looking for a quarterback, you know, they have to be. Mm-hmm. They almost have to be charismatic, unless you're unbelievably talented. Then you have to have some. You got to be charismatic. You got to be a good leader. You got to have fun. You got to play with fire. And Baker Mayfield checks all those boxes. Mm-hmm. He's extremely talented. On top of all of it, I think. Mm-hmm. I think he could be a very good quarterback. Yeah, I think Brett Favre is the most comparable figure to compare him to.
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's no comparing having a quarterback that just gets your team fired up. He's essentially the captain of the team. I don't care what anyone says, even if you have the best running back in the league, your quarterback on the field a lot of the times is still your field general. He's still the number one guy that you're going to be looking to for the plays and all that. And you can look at it all down the line, but pretty much every starting NFL quarterback that you see nowadays is pretty energetic or charismatic or has something to them. Even Tom Brady, again, like we've mentioned, for 20 seasons, still has the go-to. He's always happy, you know what I mean? And he's pumped when he scores his 1,000th touchdown of, you know, the last 2 years or something. It's It's insane. And so you always got to have that guy who's going to be the lifeblood of your team, even if he might not be your necessarily best player. But like every single player, I'd say from Russell Wilson to Aaron Rodgers, all across the board, Kirk Cousins, you name it, they all got that fire to them. And they're always recorded doing something that just has that fire. And they're always the most pumped on the side and stuff. So absolutely, I agree with that.
Mm-hmm. So kind of now we're kind of shifting into quarterbacks. Let's talk about another quarterback that when I was kind of going through this offseason, Chris Smith, who is actually the content manager for the Unfiltered Sports Network. I'm actually a Minnesota Vikings reporter for him, but and I'm actually in charge of the whole NFC, and I have to probably write something about how the NFC looking is this year. And honestly, this is anybody's division. Like I mean, the Falcons were thinking to have some people back. The Vikings. It's all about what Kirk Cousins is going to do in that offensive line. If they can run the football, they don't even need Kirk Cousins. They could have bring back Kyle Sloter and he can do the job. No, I'm kidding. That's awful. But I think there's a lot of question marks around some teams. The Vikings are the main one in my opinion because they're just you don't know what you're going to get. The Packers are another team that you look at. They had a really good week as far as defensively in week 1, but you wonder how what happens when they actually go against a top 10 offense or let's face it, Mitch Trubisky isn't exactly potent. So I think the real test, I don't think it's even their real test is going to be against the Vikings, but it's going to be against somebody like the Kansas City Chiefs, which by the way, my boy Tristin is going to. That's going to be a game where, after which point, if they hold Mitch Trubisky, who I have on my fantasy team, I'm going to be a little irked. If they hold him to 17 points, I will be irked, but also I'll have an immense amount of respect for the Green Bay Packers because, this guy, Patrick Mahomes, has been playing out of his absolute mind. And it was funny. I have like 7 different fantasy leagues. So one of my buddies, Mac Miller, I believe is his name, he asked me to join his fantasy team. What the heck? Man, I got to turn that thing off. He asked me to join his fantasy team. And I was thinking, man, I've already got 7 of these. Why would I join another fantasy team? But then I was like, Parker Warner is actually his name. We only met online. I don't know where I got whatever name I said. Wow, that was embarrassing. Anyway, when he DM'd me, I was thinking, man, why am I going to another fantasy team? But then it dawned on me, I could probably mess with some people here. So I decided to draft Patrick Mahomes 1 overall. I had the first pick. I drafted Patrick Mahomes. I totally left Zeke. I left all the running backs off the board. I was like, this is really gonna mess with some people. So after that, the second round, I drafted a defense and then I drafted a kicker. The rest of my fantasy team after Patrick Mahomes is just a bunch of jokes. So now that I got it, I actually won week 1. I don't know how. I won by 70 points. I was like, okay, the fact that I this is my least studied my least amount of effort put into this and I won by 70 points. That is kind of foolish. That is absolutely absurd. And then I had, for my actual one that I took seriously, I had Aaron Rodgers, I had Dalvin Cook. I only won by 20 points. I was like, this doesn't make any sense. I couldn't believe it. Obviously fantasy is a game, but we need to get into this. I'm sorry. I love to talk. You guys noticed. We need to talk about Dak Prescott. And I talked to Chris Smith about this earlier during the summer, and I said I still stand by. Dak Prescott is not a franchise quarterback yet, just because. Listen, he had a great game. He had over 400 yards, 4 or 5 touchdowns. Had a great game. I think he proved some people wrong. He can throw the football when he has quality receivers, but here's the thing: it was against the Giants. Am I the only one that's noticing this? The Giants might actually be worse than the Dolphins in some cases. Seriously, all they have one player. Saquon Barkley. After that, do you mind telling me, until Daniel Jones actually gets on the field, don't worry, Ethan Vober, we know you think he's going to start halfway through the season, but do you actually think that the Giants are that much better than the Dolphins? Because I don't. I look at the Dolphins and I look at the Giants, I see a lot of similarities. 2 awful teams with maybe 1 or 2 actually respectable good players. He did it against a team that I'm pretty sure is going to be the top 3 worst in passing yards and touchdowns allowed. I'm pretty sure that's what the Giants are going to end up as. So, again, I'm a guy. If you do it for an entire season, then I'll give you the amount of respect that you deserve. But the Giants, we're questioning ourselves about him going off against the Giants. I don't think he's a franchise quarterback yet. So he needs to prove to me that he's going to do that against teams, the other playoff teams, like the Saints, like the Rams, somebody else that has a respectable defense that can go in there and is going to give him a challenge. What do you guys think? Did Dak Prescott prove that he is a franchise quarterback?
Well, I used to not believe in him either until last season when playoffs came around and I witnessed him almost do a front flip to score a touchdown against the Seattle Seahawks. Then I started thinking, at the very minimum, this guy is athletic. What I think is what he brings to the table is something different than we see in a lot of quarterbacks. He's a bigger, stockier, mobile quarterback. He's almost like Big Ben was back in his day. So it's difficult right now to gauge just how much he's going to increase or if he does or how he does. Because, again, it is against the Giants. I'll give you that. That's a really easy defense to probably walk on, have some practice, and say he had a good game and flip out. But at the same time, he definitely in that game, because I watched some of the highlights from it, he definitely did show that he does have a cannon of an arm. He is prepared to go for the deep ball. And that's something that is still kind of difficult nowadays to find in quarterbacks. You have a lot of the medium and short pass guys who have it down, but when it comes to the long ball, inaccurate, it's gone, it doesn't go in. But with Dak, I'm seeing a guy who can run, who's big, who also can move that big body of his and crash through people while still being able to chuck that thing down the field and score a touchdown.
He's actually pretty accurate with the deep ball. Mm-hmm. Like, he's actually pretty accurate.
I want to say he's a top, like the last I checked, I think he could be, quote me on this if I'm wrong, but if you check, I think a top 3 for deep pass threats or something in those statistics. Like, his deep balls are one of the most accurate in the league. And that's great to have because, I mean, for them, especially in the end of a game when you're trying to Hail Mary it or something, I mean, as you can know about the Hail Marys, they can just they happen all the time. They absolutely are a thing that happen, but you need a deep ball quarterback and you need one who has a strong arm, just someone who's accurate as well. It's just, and with him, it'll take a little bit of time for me to warm up to, but as a franchise quarterback for the Cowboys, I don't see an issue with them having him. I mean, they can build around him. That O-line's always nasty. It's the best, I'd say, actually, in the league, always. You watch those guys play, and you've never seen linemen move like them. And with Dak, I mean, anything's possible. There's a lot of times where franchise quarterbacks blossom, become almost Hall of Famer candidates in some season because that O-line or that offense was just so damn good and it helped them out. So that's something I could see. Is it just the offensive line and the offense helping him out? I'm not 100% sure, but deep down the line, I think he could definitely blossom and become something a little bit better than what we've expected of him or thought of him so far.
Mm-hmm. And Tristin, I'm sorry to cut you off, but I know I got to say this. When you guys tell me, because I believe I brought this up with a buddy by mine, Tony Monk, who came on the podcast. Do you guys, if you guys were a defensive coordinator about to go up against the Dallas Cowboys, do you guys by chance plan to stop? Like, do you put your entire defensive game plan on stopping Dak Prescott? No.
You game plan to stop Ezekiel Elliott and Amari Cooper.
Yes, exactly. You game plan because Ezekiel Elliott, and credit to the Giants, who, again, aren't exactly a playoff contending team. They actually held Zeke to, 50 yards and a touch? Like, they held Zeke. But then Dak actually was able to throw it out. But I'm pretty sure it's because, Zeke just got finished being paid the most, just got done being paid as the most expensive or highest paid running back in the NFL. So I think, again, I give respect to him in week 1. He had a great game, but I'm not ready just to immediately jump in and say, that he's immediately a franchise quarterback and a guy that's going to, I probably didn't need to do the head whip, but all my point is that I'm just not ready. I have commitment issues. I'm a Vikings fan. I'm not ready just to absolutely go right in right away and say, that he's absolutely a franchise quarterback right away. I'm sorry, Tristin, please go ahead.
Oh, it's fine. As you know, we've talked about it on a previous episode, maybe 5 or 6 episodes ago, about this whole Dak being a franchise quarterback issue. I think I said I didn't think he was a franchise quarterback, and I said this year was a prove-it year for Dak because he's got the pieces around him now. But the more I think about it and the more I look at what he's done in his 3 years of being there, I'm leaning more towards the side of he is a franchise quarterback, just because his first year he made it to the playoffs. They lost in the first round. Second year, they got to the playoffs. They won the first round. This year, we don't know how far they're going to go, but they looked pretty damn good this week. And I think a lot of credit that's going to Dak Prescott needs to go to Kellen Moore, their first-year offensive coordinator. I was super impressed. From the beginning of the game, usually you see, with Green Bay, they have Matt LaFleur and this brand-new offense. Dallas is a brand-new offense. And the thing that I noticed with Green Bay, they weren't getting up to the line until there was about 8-10 seconds left on the play clock. So there wasn't much room to buffer there for Rodgers to call audibles. They had to hurry up. They got a lot of delayed games in that game. But the one thing I noticed about Kellen Moore's offense, the Dallas Cowboys were in and out of the huddle so fast. They got to the line, and there was still a good 20 seconds left before they needed to snap the ball. So I was super impressed with the game plan, super impressed with how how smooth the offense seemed to be running and how easy it looked. It looked absolutely easy. And like you said, it's the Giants defense, just like you said with Lamar Jackson, it's the Dolphins defense. But at the end of the day, I don't think it really matters. Some of those balls he threw, the ball he threw to Amari Cooper left side of the end zone was a dime. And I don't think anybody would have defended that. I think Amari Cooper would have beat anybody on that route. The pass he threw to Randall Cobb over the middle for that 30 or 40-yard touchdown. You can talk crap about the Giants defense there because they just left him wide open, and anybody could have made that throw. But as far as him being a franchise quarterback, like he said, he's got the build to be able to do everything. He can run, he can take hits. He's charismatic. He gets fired up.
Yeah.
If he has fun when he's playing, and he's proven that if you put pieces around him, surround him with a good team at least, that he can win games. So.
Yep, absolutely. I just want to preface this by saying I don't think he's a franchise quarterback yet, but that's not to say I haven't seen some really good moments from him. Obviously, week one was a very good moment from him. I even saw some great moments from him in the playoff loss last year. I think they had to the Rams. I think it was either divisional round or it was the divisional round, because then the Rams, I think, went to go play I think it was the Saints in the NFC Championship game. And I saw some really good moments I've seen a lot of good moments from Dak Prescott. I've said from the beginning, he's athletic. He gets out of the pocket. He can make defenses pay with his legs. I want to go out on the record and saying, now, it wasn't too long ago that Mr. Case Keenum for the Minnesota Vikings came in a couple of years ago and threw some absolute dimes. So I would say, to your point about there's some good throws that these NFL quarterbacks make because they're in the NFL for a reason. Okay, Case Keenum is not a franchise quarterback. He's a good player, but I don't think he's obviously not a franchise quarterback. But so in order for me to say Dak Prescott is a franchise quarterback, he needs to have this continued success for a full 16-game season. And at some point, Zeke, knock on wood, I would never wish an injury on anybody, but if Zeke goes down, he needs to prove to me that he can handle it, because I think there was a stretch a couple years ago when Zeke was out that I don't think he scored a touchdown for almost 3 weeks. Like, literally, it's not me taking a shot at him. I don't have anything against him. I love everything, the charisma, as you guys stated, the amount of passion he plays the game with. He's a great leader, a great locker room guy, but I need to see more. I need to see him take the charge and be like, all right, Zeke's out. That's all right. I got us, boys. We're going to we're going to go down. We're going to score. It's that simple. So I would say before I kind of go into that thing, I need to see a little bit more of exactly how good he's going to be by himself. And obviously he needed some better wide receivers. Let's call a spade a spade. You got Randall Cobb, who I believe is one of the more explosive receivers in the NFL. Amari Cooper is a fantastic NFL wide receiver. Zeke Elliott, best running back in the game. You don't even really need to say anything else. And then you also got a guy like Jason Witten, who, again, may not flash anymore. The guy's old. Like, he's going to run as fast as his wheelchair will go. But literally, he's still a very effective player. On 3rd and 5, you know who you're targeting when you're the Dallas Cowboys, in my opinion. So he's got some weapons now. This is, like Tristin said, this is a prove-it year for Dak Prescott. This is the time where, okay, Cowboys fans can, the excuses aside, they can kind of look and see. And same thing for a team like the Minnesota Vikings, man. They finally got him a little bit of help on the offensive line. Even though the first round, Garrett Bradbury, I was looking at this for Pro Football Focus. I think he literally got a 0 grade for passing. Like, I was like, how are you an 18th overall pick and get a 0, not mine, 0 grade in week 1? Like, I understand it's your first NFL game. You're going up against guys like Grady Jarrett, who is a very good NFL defensive tackle. He's strong. He's fast. But let's get a 0? Like, I draft you 18th overall. Give me like a 10. Doesn't need to be great. Give me like a 5, but a 0. There's a lot of questions with the Vikings, but again, it's the Vikings and the Cowboys. Those are the two teams, in my opinion, that have a lot of questions, and the Packers do too. But I think it's more about the quarterbacks for the Vikings and the Cowboys, because, I mean, come on. The Packers don't have any questions at quarterback. It's honestly about their entire offense. But I just think that it's going to come down to how well Dak Prescott can play down the year when he goes to play the Rams or when he goes to play another quality NFC opponent or AFC. It's just, again, great game. Got to see more of it though. So now, what about which NFL team really impressed you guys the most? Because in week 1, there was quite a few There was absolutely, you can go with player here if you want to, because just Oh, guys, it's so good to have football back. It really is. I covered baseball the entire summer, and I know Ethan Volber's probably going to listen to this. I love Ethan Volber. It was really fun to cover baseball. I love baseball again. But good Lord, it's not like football. I know it's the America's pastime, but it's not like football. So it's just good to have that fall feeling. I hate the winter. I really do. But it's good to have this back, and it's good to have football back. So with that, what do you guys think? Players or team that would really impressed you the most?
Go ahead.
Sure. I already kind of touched on the Bengals. I'd say, I mean, I already pretty much said Andy Dalton started out. That was great against the Seahawks. Another player who I didn't experience I'd say out of all the players that I noticed that I watched, probably one that absolutely surprised me, Jadeveon Clowney when he came to Seattle. He synced in so well and was popping off left and right, getting the run, stop, anything you needed from him. He was going all out until he literally could not anymore. And I was shocked because seeing him in Houston, it kind of always seemed like he was one of those slight factors within the defense. Not slight, but a pretty decent factor. And then coming in, I knew we had Bobby Wagner. We had all these different stars around him that would probably take over and, outstud him. But he was definitely on our defense, the one to be watching, and he was the one who was absolutely doing the best next to probably Bobby Wagner. I'd say out of players, definitely Jadeveon Clowney. I think he's going to be a nightmare for the league. I think that defense in general, once Ziggy Ansah does get healthy, if he ever does, I mean, Lord forbid you guys know exactly about his injuries and how he's in and out and he's constantly just around. But if he gets healthy, I don't see how our defense is not going to be one of the top three, at least. I mean, Jadeveon Clowney was a huge addition. Pete in the front office got him for cents. They got him for change. And he came in and he immediately made an impact. So I'd say defensive-wise and player, it's him. But overall teams, I mean, the Titans, that's just impressive. To come into and do it that big on your first game against a team that's supposed to be a Super Bowl contender. From the beginning of the offseason, we kept hearing, Browns, Super Bowl contender. Go bet in Vegas on the Browns. They're going to win and stuff. To hear that over and over again, and then to know that you're one of those teams no one really talks about at the time, to now finally have that spotlight, it's incredible for them. And I think that Marcus Mariota and all them are going to definitely, show us what they really have. I mean, he's got a definite big year ahead of him. He really has to either show that he's not a bust or he's, the franchise quarterback. He's got this season to prove it. So I think we're going to see some big things from him in the Titans. I think they're going to be one to really watch.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. Tristin?
That's true. All right. Seahawks, so let's talk about the Packers. Extremely impressed with the Packers defense. Did not see that coming at all. I figured this would be the same as the last, how long has it been? 9 years since Packers won the Super Bowl. Rodgers is going to have to put up 40 points to win against a good defense like that. He has to put up at least 30 points. The defense can't do anything. But, they hired Mike Pettin as their defensive coordinator. Last year was his first year, and the defense immediately took a big leap from being 30th in the league to maybe 20th, 21st, 22nd. They went from bad to average, and they added a lot of pieces. They spent like $200 million this offseason just on defense alone with two new outside rushers, Preston Smith and Zadarius Smith from the Redskins and the Ravens, which were massive. The Packers had the most quarterback pressures out of any team in week one, which they've probably never been in the top 10 in the last 10 years. So this defense is really coming together. They only allowed the Bears offense 3 points. Granted, Mitch Trubisky, in my opinion, he's garbage. He's the second coming of Jay Cutler, in my opinion.
Thank you. My girlfriend's a huge Bears fan, and she lives by Trubisky, and I think he's a flop. I think this season's going to show exactly how he is. They needed to build around someone else. They made a mistake with him.
Yeah, and to think that they passed up on Patrick Mahomes and Deshaun Watson, and that they traded up to draft Mitch Trubisky.
Yep.
But
for a guy they could have got at the 3rd overall pick, I was dying after that. I'm like, oh no.
I mean, I don't doubt Mitch Trubisky has the ability to be a good quarterback. He's got the legs. He's made good throws before, but he just has a really bad consistency problem. Like, especially, there's a big joke that he can't throw to his left at all, like the left side of the field. He can't throw an accurate pass, and it showed against the Packers. He couldn't really throw anything. And the last drive of the game where the Bears were going down the field pretty easily, I was just saying, just wait. Just wait. He's going to throw a pick or he's going to fumble. The Jay Cutler curse is going to live on. And because I don't think Mitch is that good. And next thing you know, he throws a pick in the end zone, ends the game. Didn't surprise me at all. But, the Packers defense was a very pleasant surprise for me. Not really surprised by how poorly the offense did. I mean, it's Chicago's defense. They played phenomenal. It's week one. I didn't expect this brand new offense to be amazing right out the gate. I think in order to beat the Vikings this week, the Green Bay's offense is going to have to put up probably 20 or more because the Vikings pretty damn good. But yeah, the most exciting thing for me besides Green Bay had to have been Lamar Jackson. I'm a huge Lamar Jackson fan. I've been on the Lamar Jackson bandwagon since he was at Louisville. Just watching his highlights, I remember, I think it was like week 4 or week 5 into the NCAA season. Like, I know this guy's going to win the Heisman Trophy. There's no doubt. He's rushing like damn near 200 or 300 yards a game, throwing for 200 or 300 yards a game. And I knew he could throw because I watched him at Louisville. I knew that if they put a good offense around him and they crafted their offense around Lamar Jackson, that he was going to be pretty dangerous. And to say he could be as good as Michael Vick is a stretch. But if he can do what he did, he doesn't even have to do what he did last week. If he can do half as good as what he did last week for a whole season, if he can throw
touchdowns,
yeah, he's going to be huge. And the Ravens, they're going to be serious threats to any defense in the AFC. Even the Patriots defense isn't safe.
Can we kind of give a little bit of a shout out though to Hollywood Brown, Marquise Brown, who had like the game of a lifetime in his rookie year, first game of the season, first game he ever stepped on the field in an actual NFL game, not including preseason. I mean, you want to talk about a guy that absolutely balled out. Over 170 yards, 2 touchdowns. Obviously, the dude can fly. But I love to see guys like that who I think a lot of people were like they didn't know, and it just came out absolutely balled out. But actually for me, and this isn't me taking a shot again at the Packers because I think they got the Vikings number this week just because I think Aaron Rodgers is finally going to get a little bit comfortable. That defense looks good. I think it was more impressive for the Vikings to beat the Falcons, and here's why. The Falcons have a top 10 offense. I don't get fooled by the way they played in week 1. They got most of their guys back now. They're finally getting healthy. The Falcons are going to come back and be a tough team now, so don't get misguided there. The Falcons also defensively had like 7 defensive starters last year. And again, the Falcons are 2 years removed from going to the Super Bowl, and I mean, come on. An amazing finish by Tom Brady. They're amazing finish by Tom Brady away from being Super Bowl champions, okay? That's how far Julio Jones should have a ring on his finger right about now, but he doesn't because Tom Brady, played out of his mind. Anyway, the point is that I think it's just a little bit more impressive that the Vikings beat the Falcons like they did. It was 28-0 at one time, and the Falcons didn't have a way to stop them. Again, the Vikings didn't have to throw the football, so I mean, possibly the biggest question mark for the Vikings being Kirk Cousins didn't really have to put him in jeopardy. But the Packers, let's be honest, you guys scored 10 points against a really good defense. That's impressive because I don't think a lot of teams will do that this year. But the Packers defense. Come on, Mitch Trubisky, they lost Jordan Howard. They brought in a new running back, Montgomery, who didn't exactly kill it, had like a 27-yard catch. I think that was the biggest play I'd seen the entire game. So I think it was just a little bit more impressive to see what the Vikings did. But nonetheless, the way that the Packers were able to come back and be able to battle, and that defense to still to kind of in a way kind of expose Mitch Trubisky. Like if you think about it, because the entire NFL offseason, I was thinking everybody's like, I had a couple of Bears fans just kept obviously just mauling me, Mitch Trubisky's gonna come and throw 40 touchdowns. I was like, no, he's not. People are always every day they're like just giving me all this Mitch Trubisky stuff, and I'm like, listen. The Packers defense is a good defense just from what they showed me week 1. But if they do that, if the Bears go into a top 10 defense, an actual top 10 defense, not like the Vikings, but we'll say anybody else, like the Patriots, if they go in against one of those teams, even like the Chiefs, who have a really good improving defense, I think that's going to be the real question, how they actually play against, and again, the Packers are probably going to do this all season long, so don't be surprised about that. But if the Bears can go out and even against a crappy defense and do well, I'm not going to really consider it to be that impressive. Don't get me wrong. Again, the Bears, they've got a long way to go, but I know it's week 1. But from what I saw with the Packers and the Bears game, I think, and plus with the Vikings game, I really think it's going to come down to, I think the Packers are going to find a way to stop the offensive line of the Minnesota, and I think they're going to be able to stop Dalvin Cook, and it's going to come down to what can Kirk Cousins do to unleash the football. And personally, I don't know. Last year he had a good year, but that was because he had to, because we didn't have a running game until week 15 or 16. We had very few 100-yard games, and it was against possibly one of the worst teams in the NFL, the Miami Dolphins. So it's really, honestly, it's going to come down to Kirk Cousins being able to air it out. But I'm excited for this year. What about what about the Seahawks? I got to quit it saying I'm excited. Obviously, I'm excited for this year because that football's back. But what about for the Seahawks? I kind of had a question for you because I got Chris Carson on my fantasy team who scored. I think he only had like 20 yards, but he scored 2 touchdowns and he fumbled once. Not that big of a deal. But do you really think that DK Metcalf is the real deal?
I absolutely, after this game, seeing that after coming back off of a surgery, even though it's minor, those minor surgeries take a toll on you. And you see these players come back from just a minor surgery like that and tear something way bigger. He is fast. He is strong. His legs do not stop moving. He was putting out a show on Sunday when he was playing. And that was that right there showed me that if he keeps this up, like definitely by the end of the season, I'm going to have his jersey. He's definitely my next favorite player to watch besides Jadeveon Clowney. I mean, both of them have some things to prove, but DK Metcalf, I think, got overlooked a lot in the draft just because they really started analyzing his plays and were like, well, he can't do it this way and he can't do it that way, but he's good at getting the long routes and, his legs, he can get separation. He's strong. But I think DK Metcalf is now showing something that's similar to almost not quite there yet, but it's still developing what we saw in a Calvin Johnson or something like. He is massive. He is strong. He gets separation like I've never seen any wide receiver on the Seahawks do. I mean, we had Doug Baldwin. We've had generally smaller wide receivers in our time. We've never had that big dude besides if you consider Jimmy Graham a red zone wide receiver instead of a tight end at the time. We've never had that big, strong wide receiver, and I've always wanted that. And with Russell's quickness, DK's quickness, because he is fast for his size. He ran the fastest 40 in the combine by a lot.
Like, still, he's like, what, 240, and he's run like a 4.4 time? I'm not even going to run him with my new truck. Like, he is.
He's got 3% body fat. I mean, overall, his catching ability, it was a stud of a show. I'm very happy with it, and I think that he's definitely going to show out in the league, and I would definitely watch and have him on your league. Chris Carson, too, that is a sleeper. I have him on my fantasy team, not because he's a Seahawk, but he put up a lot of yards last season, and in his game scored a lot of touchdowns, but the Seahawks are going to be rushing a lot more this year, and he's seeming like the number one guy with Rashad Penny. I think Penny will be the backup. He might be the third down guy to get in, but Carson's also quick, and he's strong as well. We saw him break off quite a few tackles when he was going in for that touchdown. So I think that definitely the Seahawks are going to be one to look at, and there's quite some players, especially DK and Jadeveon, that are going to need to stud out. But DK is definitely the real deal. I think he's here to stay, and I hope he stays healthy, and he'll just evolve into something that I don't think we've seen in a minute since Calvin Johnson.
Absolutely. What about you, big guy? I know you got something to say about it. You got nothing?
DK?
DK? I like his mouth guard.
Did the pass
by? I know. I was going to say that. I know. Like, that's the one thing I was telling myself. Come on, Tristin. Like, telekinesis has got to work. Like, I know he's got to say something about his mouth guard because that's just the stuff that Tristin notices. But, did anybody else like it when DK took his shirt off like after he got drafted, and then Pete Carroll took his shirt off? Like, I just love that because I just felt like that just showed his personality as a coach. I've always been a big fan of Pete Carroll because you never see him. You could just tell that the entire roster of the Seahawks want to play for the guy. Like they suit up for him. They're motivated to play for him, and it shows. Like because they don't like the Seahawks. Like you mentioned it, they don't have the top 5 receiving core in the NFL. But they've got guys that go undrafted. Doug Baldwin's a great example. I believe he was undrafted.
Undrafted. Yep.
And you got guys that just go ball out for him because they want to play for a good coach, and that makes it.
And the thing with Pete is, I had my offensive line coach in high school. He actually played for Pete Carroll's USC team, like one of his actual championship teams. Yep, he played. And I actually got to FaceTime him on one of my birthdays when I was playing in a game. We were playing in our state championship, but Pete Carroll actually. We did not know. No, we got creamed. It was bad. Yeah, it was upsetting. But yeah, Pete Carroll, what he was telling me is the coaching style he does is he's not a hard ass. He does not yell at the players, nothing like that. He's very positive, over the top. If they mess up, you're going to do it until you get it right. But hey, have a good attitude, have fun, and just smile. Like, this is a game. Remember, it's a game. There's a lot of important things. And that's what he told me. And I was like, I definitely see that. I don't see that in very many coaches, but yeah, my coach played for him, and he said he was the absolute best coach he's ever played for and the happiest guy he's ever met. And the gum he chews, if you've ever wondered, because he always chews gum, yeah, it's actually, I thought it was a mint gum. It's double bubble. Of anything, he chews double bubble. So that's a neat thing to see on the side. Yep.
Absolutely. I just want to say that Tristin, your cat just came up on the couch and got in the curtains. Like that was happening. I couldn't believe it. But no, I think that the Seahawks was I the one that noticed like a huge like transformation of the Seahawks? Like, I think it was like 2009 they lost to the Vikings, and then after that point they haven't lost since then because like I think they brought in Pete Carroll around that time ish. I'm not sure. I'm not a Seahawks fan, but I think after that moment like they just stopped losing to people. Like Pete Carroll said enough is enough. We're going to go out and just start annihilating people. I mean, they won a Super Bowl, one of the best defenses in the NFL for like an extended period of time. But yeah, man, I think that was pretty much it for the show. Man, I don't know what else to talk about. I mean, we covered the NFL pretty thoroughly, I would say. You guys excited for the NBA or not really? Huh?
I'm not even thinking about it.
I'm too dang excited about the football season start. It's been so long, and I felt empty without it. I mean, there's other sports to keep you occupied, but nothing is like football season, and no sport's ever going to be quite like it when it comes down to the wire. Even March Madness is great, but you can't tell me NFL playoffs aren't the most intense games you're going to watch in a long time.
Absolutely.
Yeah, every year.
Mm-hmm. I guess, by the way, kind of going back to your point about losing the state championship, at least you went to the state championship. My team didn't even go, so Tristan's got a ring. I don't want to hear it, Tristin. I know you're gonna try to give it to me. Where are you from, by the way, Stone?
I am from Southern California. I grew up in Orange County, California, most of my life. Irvine, California. So
okay, my girlfriend's from LA. Sorry, but she's from LA.
Oh yeah, I'm from Long Beach. So I'm originally from Long Beach, and then I lived in Orange County. So LA, I mean, yeah, that's pretty much the region I lived in. I lived in a suburb of LA, essentially. I mean, Orange County's its own thing, but it's about the same. It's all LA, pretty much.
Okay, how'd you guys meet, by the way? Like, you guys just have a class together? Did like Tristin like?
Accounting? It was.
Yeah, accounting.
We had accounting class together. Yeah.
2016, my first semester here. Mm-hmm. We had a class right before lunch period.
Mm-hmm.
So we'd always sit next to each other and we'd be like, "Hey, you want to get food after?"
Yeah, we'd go. Yeah.
Kind of just be like,
ate it. Yeah, and then the craziest thing too, I found out my accounting professor is a neighbor of mine now. They're not in my apartment complex. Yeah.
Oh, really?
I was pretty blown away in the parking lot running into him. I'm like, "Oh, how's it going?" No. Oh no, I did not pass. Yeah, I had to redo it I had to help like redo it or something. I had to get summer classes for it. Yeah, and then I switched my major and was like, we're gonna forget about the accounting for now.
You should have been like, dude, like you should have been like, how's it going? Hope I don't run into you accident in the hallway for not passing me. You know, just something like, I hope we don't run into each other again. Like I would have.
See you in the laundry room.
Yeah, exactly. I would have messed with them, but yeah, it's funny that you just run it. It's a small world. What was that? I actually ran into like kind of like that for a professor of mine a couple. When was it? I can't remember. And it's like in the oddest place, it's like a rodeo or something. I'm like, you like teach English, like you shouldn't be here. But you know, it's a small world or whatever. But no. But yeah, so let's kind of go through the picks for this next week. I'm sorry, Tristin, but the Packers are going to annihilate the Vikings. So I'm going to kind of give that to you. But what about the Seahawks? You think they can go? It can be one of those teams that goes 2-0?
It's going to be pretty tough. I think so. Ultimately, what I'm still seeing is just our defense has to evolve. We do have a Ziggy coming in, so Ziggy's going to absolutely put on a show for us, I believe. I'm trying to remember who we play this week. Is it New Orleans?
I'm looking.
I think we might be in New Orleans this week. I'm pretty sure. If I'm incorrect, we're playing New Orleans next week. But I think Ansa's going to come back in, and Ziggy's going to either have a ball-out game with Jadeveon, and they're going to be a mess for whatever defense we're about to play and continue on. But I think overall Russell Wilson is slowly starting to kind of get back into his comfort zone and really just open up again. And then, so we are playing the Steelers. I think it's the following week we play the Saints. So against the Steelers, I'm fairly confident. I don't see an issue now that I know it's them. Against the Saints, there's a question mark. But Steelers, I mean, all we have to do is stop the run game and Juju, and that's about it. And I think we're going to be pretty good. Ben Roethlisberger is too slow to get away from Jadeveon. I mean, it's going to be a nightmare for him. It's our D-line in general. I mean, we got Jaron Reed, too. I mean, that defense right now, Bobby Wagner, I'm sorry. Everyone compares him with Kiko, and I think, like, that's a really poor comparison. I think Bobby's going to be the best middle linebacker for this generation, hands down. He has not
over Ray Lewis?
Putting in the stats. Bobby Wagner?
Over Ray Lewis.
No, not over Ray Lewis. I mean, for like our generation, the last let's say probably like 5 or 7 years or so.
Okay.
Absolutely not. No, Ray Lewis is the GOAT. I mean, you got to give respect. But as far as middle linebackers in recent history that have started out, I mean, I can't quite think of anybody besides Luke Kuechly maybe who comes close. But Bobby Wagner every year is leading the stats for middle linebackers and is just overdoing the work. And we almost had to let him go because we couldn't afford it. But I mean, he's going to be a stud. So I think the defense, once it syncs up, the offense, once DK really gets involved in the offense, it's over with. I mean, we got a big blocking we got a big blocking running back. We got a speedy running back, you name it. I mean, the Seahawks are a jack of all trades, I'd say. I'd say watch out for them for sure.
Mm-hmm. I was going to say, like Ray Lewis, like I'm pretty sure that at one point he was like the most feared human being on the planet, like pretty close, like maybe like a couple of like serial killers, maybe, I don't know, maybe FBI's most wanted list, maybe a couple of feared there, but like seriously, you see that guy in a dark alley, you're probably going to try to climb a building, like seriously, because you just don't want to be in that situation. But,
just instant fetal position, like it's happening, whatever happens, rob me if you need to, I don't know.
Am I the only one that like whenever I see his dance out of the tunnel, I gulp? Like, just because, like, if I'm a running back about to play that, like, I tell my whole line, I'm like, if you guys get me 100 yards this game, I swear I'll help put you guys down a payment for a new house, because seriously, like, you can't, that guy was just absolutely.
He's a monster. He's scary. Yeah. He's intimidating. I mean, that dance too, everyone could look at it as corny or whatever. Like, I know a lot of Steelers fans are like, that's so dumb. Why'd he do? But man, that man right there from beginning to end put the fear in every single quarterback, running back, and wide receiver's heart. Absolutely. Yeah. Even linemen did not like going up secondary and blocking them. That's just rough on them. I'd be pancaked for sure. Yeah. There's no way I'm going against Ray Lewis. No way.
Yeah. Anywho, I think that's all we kind of, wrapping up the show and everything. Stone, it was great having you on. Where can I follow you at, by the way?
You can follow me on Instagram, Stone Cleere, StoneCleere. On SoundCloud as well. I got some rap music there too, so if you want to check that out. But any social media, that's pretty much what I'm on. And yeah, thanks for having me. I love coming on and I love talking about sports. I'm very into football, so anytime I can preach my wisdom.
Absolutely. And Tristin, again, always. Well, first of all, Stone, it's great having you on. Like I like being able to have all these different fans on, just because I think it gives a lot of a listening experience to all the different listeners we got. So absolutely great having you on. Tristin, always a pleasure. I don't think we need to say anything else, big guy. Just great having you both on. And we have a tornado warning, so I probably better close this thing off. But again, having you guys on was amazing. So we'll see all of our listeners.
We got to get him on the list for a free shirt, right?
Yep, we'll get him on.
I'll rock that shirt around here for sure. You'll see me wearing it all the time. Absolutely, yeah. Yeah,
we'll get you on. We just ordered shirts, so it's gonna probably be about a week. But anywho, a little while until we get more people. But anywho, we'll get that to you. Thanks again for joining the show. And as always, this is Colton and Sports Brief Podcast. Thanks for joining us.